From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wow Report for Radio Andy, where we usually count down the top 10 things of the week that made us go wow. But this week, we're going to be talking about the biggest movies of 2024 that made us go wow. A sort of clip show from the previous year of all our favorite movies and documentaries so far. But let's start on the other end of the spectrum with the movies that made us go wow in a bad way. And we'll start with Tom's pick at number 10.
Number 10.
Megalopolis, which some people are calling a flopalopolis. Which I just like to say, flopalopolis. It feels like a Sesame Street character, right? Megalopolis, if you don't know, is Francis Ford Coppola's. He's been working on this for decades. He spent his own money, hundreds of millions of dollars.
2 red flags right there. If you can't get it done in a year, it ain't worth it. And if you have to spend your own money, it ain't worth it.
Says
Spoken
James
like it's-
St. James. How long did it take you to write Body Monster?
It's taking me 20 years to do Killer Grandpa. So I know whereof I speak.
Yes, you are. You guys are in the
crap.
same category. I said, anyway. So it stars Adam Driver, Shia LaBeouf, Jon Voight, many, many more. It is a fable. And I never have really seen all of Fountainhead, the Ayn Rand movie, but it's about Adam Driver plays like a brilliant inventor architect. It's set in like a surreal future. There's the Chrysler building, all that kind of stuff. And there's just bacchanal behavior and orgies and what? Did I say it wrong?
No, you didn't. I'm just like architecture orgies.
Yes.
That's what I was saying. This is Fenton written all over it. It does
kind of. I mean, I wish we had all seen it because we'd have such a better. You guys have such better references than I do. But it's completely insane. Someone says it's a mess of a masterpiece. It's opera in extremis, and some people love it, some people don't. The reason I went is because my friend Abe Sylvia had posted this New York Times article that said, in this age where everything is so formulaic, the Marvel movies, there's exceptions, but most of them are just so loud and disgusting.
And unless it's an established IP or whatever that's
yes.
called. Yes.
And they're saying it's great curse that Francis Ford Coppola put up his own money. It's like, good for him for putting his money where his mouth is. He's like 80 something years old and he wanted to make art. And this is the way he could make art. So I went with that spirit. It didn't stay with me, but it does not, you are not distracted from the screen for an iota. So much happens. And it's the struggle between kind of people that want to push into the future and build and make cities that are organic and grow with people and make life better. And the sort of the power of the mayor, fill people with fear, keep them in their place. Police are brutal and all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't even begin to tell what it is. And there's a love story between Adam Driver and the female lead, who's the daughter of the mayor. So
Is it set in a sort of non-specific time period? Like, would you say it's set in the past, in the future, or sort of future?
It's
past?
It's set 10 minutes in the future, or and it's but again, New York is called New Rome, but we're in, like the first scene is Adam Driver jumping off the Chrysler building where I think he lives and then pulls himself back. He has this special power that he can stop time. I don't understand. And there's a quote that is quoted that's supposedly from Marcus Aurelius. I don't even know who that is. See how and it goes, the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. Now, somebody pointed out, and this is hard without looking at it, but to escape, finding oneself in the ranks of the insane, or but to escape finding oneself in the rank of the insane. What does it mean? Even that I'm not clear about.
Fabulous.
And then somebody said that's not really his quote. They're misquoting him. So
Well, he was a Roman emperor. That I can tell you.
Okay.
Thank
you, Google.
Adam Driver usually picks really fascinating movies and is usually not wrong in his picks. So that gives
it's an actor's delight. I mean, it's not like it's people are chewing up the scenery. Shia LaBeouf has this incredible character.
That's an odd choice. I thought he was canceled.
He's in drag. He's always different. He's like the Trump son who does anything for the. Jon Voight plays the richest man in the world. Oh, no, Aubrey Plaza plays like a Fox reporter who marries ancient John Voight, and it becomes the evilest of them all. And like, it's Aubrey Plaza's moment. She's kind of in every movie right now.
Spotting a trend here, because in The Substance, remember, Dennis Quaid plays the villain. And it's interesting to get these Trumpian MAGA people, John Voight, Dennis Quaid, to play the villains, because you are already predisposed to dislike them when they appear on your screen.
Why is it that movies are only judged by their value, by their success? I mean, I guess it's a money-based business, but okay, so he's got the money, he's self-funded. Aren't we all in the self-publishing, self-creating business now?
Exactly. He's just a content creator. Yeah. And, you know, and his history is mega hits and huge flops. That is what he has done.
That's his brand, yes.
But you also get, you know, Platoon out of that. You know, you get like amazing. I'm
excited to see Megalopolis.
Well, but you won't even see The Substance, so I don't know what we're talking about there.
I wish you guys would see it and make me feel smarter. That's what that's what this is about.
Because I listen to Tom, and when Tom says go see something, I listen to it. But apparently, when I say something, Fenton just
honey.
When Tom says jump, we say how high.
Exactly.
And when James says it, we say number 9, James.
Oh.
Number 9.
Joker 2, Folie à Deux.
You saw it?
Starring Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga. It is bombing terribly. Everyone hates it. I went to the theater. People were walking out left and right. I happened to be the 1% that loved it. I loved it. I thought it was the best movie I've seen.
Wait, one thing. How did you get to the theater? Because reading the reviews, had you read the reviews before you went?
Yeah, sure.
And how did you get yourself there? How did you know to break?
Because I love a musical. I love Lady Gaga. I loved the Joker. How am I not? I am the target audience right there. And the music, Tom, is the American Songbook. I know that right from the beginning. Lady Gaga singing the American Songbook. I'm there. I love it. Now, you know, it is a musical, and people hate musicals, which explains why everybody was furious with it walking out. They maybe didn't know that it was a musical, and it's not a happy musical. It is not a joyous musical. This is Spring Awakening. This is Evita. This is Oliver, Cabaret, Les Mis. This is a dark vision of musicals, version of musicals.
And the Joker, the first one, was not a musical, but it was dark.
It was dark. And if the Joker was Taxi Driver meets King of Comedy, remember?
Okay, yep.
This is Pennies from Heaven meets All That Jazz.
Well, that sounds great.
Yeah, as his world keeps getting darker and darker, he keeps imagining bigger and bigger musical numbers that are happening, and you're watching him dissociate in real time. Now, the problem is, early on, there's a scene where Harley Quinn is helping the Joker escape from prison. And they get to the front of the gate and they're almost out. And you keep thinking, well, this is a great place for the movie to go. The Joker and Harley are going to go on a rampage, and there's going to be singing and dancing as they did it. But no, he gets pulled back into the prison, and the last half of the movie is set in a trial.
A trial. I've heard the trial goes on for too long.
The trial goes on forever and ever and ever. And it's a missed opportunity right there. Another missed opportunity. There's a very sweet gay moment that happens where there's this, he's in the very early on, Arthur Fleck is in the prison yard, and it's raining, and everybody's, walking in the circle. And this young boy comes up to him. He's like, in his early 20s, cute boy. And he's talking to Arthur, and he says that he's never gotten any affection in his life, and nobody has ever even kissed him. He's never been kissed in his entire life. And Arthur leans over and very sweetly kisses him on the lips. And from that moment on, this kid is just smitten with Arthur. And I would have liked to have seen more of that relationship. The boy's name is Ricky, and someday we'll have a talk about what happens to Ricky. The spoiler, but I can't do it right now.
Don't do it.
The movie's too young. But anyway, like I said, I enjoyed it. I think you should watch Pennies from Heaven, because that's the prototype for this.
Yep.
It's a fantastic movie, and that maybe will get you in the mood for Joker 2, because it is the same setup where, as his life gets worse and worse.
Because I've been reading so much about it, and they're just saying, it's just for the Joker 1 audience, this is too much of a left turn.
Yeah, it is. And I have a feeling this is going to be a 3-part series, like the Batman was 3 parts. You know, the Christopher Nolan Batman was 3 movies. I have a feeling this is going to be a 3rd movie, and that it's going to take off. They're going to go off and have the blowing up it's going to be what people want, and this is the one in the middle that they had to get through.
And you know, Lady Gaga has an album out.
Yes.
Which is the American Songbook, because it's inspired by it's called Harlequin. It's inspired by the movie.
Yeah. And like I said, she is, you know, she's good. She's very, very good, and he's fantastic. And they know, and the two of them together are I sent you the one Sonny and Cher number that they do,
yes,
so good. And when you see it, it just looks so fantastic.
I just wonder what kind of behind the scenes bloodletting is going on, you know, in terms of who's going to take the blame for this. And because you're confident there'll be a 3rd one, but you know, with box office this bad, I'm not sure that there will be.
Well, no, but I'll tell you something. Zaslav's hands are all over this, and Zaslav famously did not give it a screening for anyone. He was for you know, the press or whatever like that, because he was so convinced about this. You know, he's always wrong about everything.
But the director is Todd Phillips, right? Who did the Hang? Like, he's made them billions and billions of dollars. So maybe.
And Zaslav is behind this. Zaslav said that he loved it, so I think he will, you know.
My last little aside is there is one new song on the Gaga album that's inspired by this movie called "Happy Mistake," which is not a standard. That's one of the most beautiful songs. Happy Mistake. If it's not playing on the radio, find it and play it. It reminds me of why I love Lady Gaga, and I love her voice, and I love what she does with interpretation.
The problem with it too is there's like 20 songs they could have just done with 10, and they don't do the whole song, and they sort of stop it halfway through. I think if they had done the whole song and only done 10 of them, it might have been a little more palatable for people.
Well, okay, number 8.
Number 8.
You know, sometimes, James, the art itself can be the crime. I saw the worst movie I believe I have ever seen, perhaps in my life. An M. Night Shyamalan movie, Trap. I don't know if I can even get through describing how awful it is. Yeah.
It was a completely long form commercial for his daughter's music career. You had to sit through these long performances, an entire song, not just a clip.
His daughter, a lovely, lovely person, but a pop star she is not. and so they rent out some big venue, and she's giving this huge concert because she's a huge star, which she just so is not. And we are looking at her performing these songs that aren't really songs for a really long time. And Josh Hartnett is taking his daughter, who's a massive fan, to this concert. Well, spoiler alert, not really. He suddenly starts to notice all these police around in the stadium, and he's looking shifty. So you immediately know that he is the butcher, who is a serial killer that the police are out to get. Number 2, I mean, as if that isn't odd enough that you're going to try and apprehend a serial killer in a concert of 20,000 people. But thing number 2 is there is a FBI profiler who's like sort of Helen Mirren type, who is saying he'll show up, he'll do this, as if she's some kind of all-knowing psychic who's arranged this entire concert as a trap to get Josh Hartnett.
Haley Mills plays the profiler, and it's so weird. During the concert, there are scenes where he goes out into the concourse, and it's completely packed.
Yeah,
like that never happens. It's so unbelievable.
He goes to get his daughter a t-shirt, and the guy at the concession stand says they're out of that size, but to come back, and they go back together to the stockroom. No person selling a t-shirt at a Taylor Swift concert is going to take you back to the storeroom.
And he's the one who spilled the beans about the heist to catch him.
Yes.
To him.
Did you watch it the whole way through?
Here's the thing. It was so bad. I was so slack-jawed at like the dialogue, the acting,
the audacity.
I was like, I have to see how this plane crash hits the ground. And
Is there a surprise twist?
There is nothing that you do not see coming a mile off.
As just a single person with a single vote
Yeah.
in this world, taking up us a little bit of time and space, my only power in the streaming wars is to not finish a movie I do not like. So like that Jerry Seinfeld movie, I did not finish it. I showed them. That's
Well, no, absolutely right. So I guess it did have some sort of compellingness, because I was just trying to think, how did this get greenlit? How is it even possible?
Well, how good is Josh Hartnett though? Because I love a good Josh Hartnett. I love him so much. I want him to do well in the world.
It's like that Tyra Banks thing. We were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you.
I hate to tell you, Fenton, but you are a victim of the algorithm. The algorithm's gonna get you. The algorithm's gonna get you. The algorithm's gonna get you. You watched it. They win.
There's so many little things that are just like her fans, the pop stars fans are called The Flock. She's called Lady Raven, and the flock wear fancy feathered wings. And it just feels so fundamentally out of touch, so old, so pre-Gaga in the 80s, if there was such a thing. And it's just really...
Oh, and that's a shame, because I love Haley Mills too. Haley or Allie, which one?
But the other weird thing is, I don't know, and I don't care. The other weird thing is how The Sixth Sense was such a good movie, and how this could be so appallingly bad. It
has been a downward spiral since, the Village, or the woman in the lady in the lake, or the woman in the water, or whatever. I mean, like, he's just had a string of just god awful movies.
I mean, one of the reviews did say, you got to hand it to him. To get a piece of original IP made in this market is kind of a feat in itself. I mean, it is. How did he do it? and one review,
who is still giving him money time and time again after every single terrible...
They go to the algorithm and they show Fenton and they go, look, he watched it all the way to the end.
Completion rate, that's right, absolutely. And here I am bigging it up, giving it much more publicity, because it
feels like people bonded over how bad it was.
I think so. I mean, it wasn't in the sort of camp space of The Deliverance. It's just bad. And you're like, at one point he manages to smuggle out of the venue with his daughter by going to the pop star and saying, I have a man in my basement and I'll just press this button and he will die. So you have to get us into the limo to get us out of here. They go to his wife's house. I mean, and the pop star is trying to delay because she now knows that he's the butcher. And she says, "Oh, I'll sing you a song." And she performs a song in their piano in their living room on the piano. And
I have a theory, though, that people today, the kids today, they get themselves a pizza and they get potted up on marijuana and they will just watch anything to completion. I think
maybe that's
potted up on marijuana.
Potted out of their minds is what they are, and they don't care about quality the way we used to.
Those whippersnappers.
Yes.
Those were our least favorite movies of 2024. Tom's pick, Megalopolis, and James's pick, Joker 2, are both available on video on demand, and Fenton's pick, Trap, is available on HBO Max for streaming. Now, before we go to break, I just want to fill you in on a little Black Friday secret. You can get 20% off across Wow Presents Plus, RuPaul's DragCon, RuPaul's Drag Race Live in Vegas, and the Wow Store from today until Monday. And you'll also want to sign up to our email list at worldofwonder.com to get our daily advent calendar deals that begin on Sunday and will be delivered daily to your inbox until the new year. Sign up at worldofwonder.com. We'll be right back after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Wow Report. This week, we're doing things a little bit different. It's our 2024 movie extravaganza. It's a sort of clip show from the previous year of all of our favorite movies and documentaries so far. Last segment, we chatted about our least favorite movies of 2024, and you can go back and listen to those on our YouTube channel, Wow Presents, on the Wow Report podcast, wherever you podcast, or in the SiriusXM app. But now we're going to be talking about our favorite documentaries of 2024 that made us go wow, starting with Tom's pick at number 7.
Number 7.
Finally took the time to watch The Greatest Night in Pop. It's a documentary on Netflix about the recording of We Are the World from 1985. Some people don't like that song. I love that song. And this documentary says the obvious, which I've known for years, which is it's such a simple song. By it being so, all of the 30 whatever celebrities, their voices are at their peak. Tina Turner, into Willie Nelson, into Dionne Warwick, into Dinah.
But can I give you a counterpoint very quickly? Because
Poor Tom
I'm
hasn't
just-
even got his thesis out. And
no, because you're the thing is when you say that people don't like it, I don't like it because Do They Know It's Christmas had come out 3 months earlier and it was the same formula. And that was a gorgeous song.
This
It was the same-
documentary will tell you that Harry Belafonte, after hearing that, because that came out like November, December of 1984, and they recorded this in like February of 1985. So it was very close together. And what's the guy that's the name? The Boomtown Rap?
Bob Geldof.
Bob
Geldof.
Geldof. Sir Bob Geldof to you.
He was, wonderful. And Harry Belafonte said, we have white people taking care of black people. Let's get black people taking care of black people. So it was him. It was Lionel Richie. It was Stevie Wonder. It was Michael Jackson. And it was Quincy Jones. And they came together and created.
And Diana Ross and Dionne Warwick.
Well, then they invited everybody. But those were the building blocks. It's like, and Ken Cragen. LaToya. And Ken Cragen was the manager of Kenny Rogers and Lionel Richie. A great man, a great humanitarian as well. And he saw the vision. And if you got the right people lined up, everyone would say yes. And I wept out loud alone several times.
Oh my God.
Because
they didn't invite Madonna. Is that why you wept? That's why I wept.
Yes. They couldn't decide between Madonna and Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah.
And they ended up picking Cyndi Lauper because they thought she had a better solo voice. And I just have to say, I love Madonna. And from Do They Know It's Christmas to We Are the World came Live Aid and Farm Aid. And Madonna, everybody got into it. Because artists felt like,
it was a moment in time.
We can do something. And I'm sorry, we live in cynical ages now and people don't give or as openly. It was pretty remarkable. And there's a quote that Quincy Jones, I watched his documentary a few years ago. He talked about the show. And he had sort of said to Michael Jackson, if the song needs strings, God will tell us. And he goes, and you have to leave enough room for God in the studio. Like magical things happen. It was the night of the American Music Awards. How do you stage something where you get Bruce Springsteen, Ray Charles, Paul Simon, Steve Perry, Daryl Hall, and John Oates, the Pointer Sisters? We didn't have a solo. Sheila E. Prince was in the. It's just how magic happens and how a song comes together. And, each of them recorded that song in front of each other. Like Quincy Jones is a genius. And Lionel Richie also is a big part of the documentary. And he is one of the kindest, most fatherly people on the planet. He was putting out fires all night. People were freaking out, didn't know what was going on. And he goes, the one thing you can't say to somebody is like, what do you think? Because then you'll have 47 opinions. So it's just like, and they show little meltdown moments, not big meltdowns, but where things people didn't, they were changing the words. People couldn't hit the note. It was fun things, but it comes together and it's this beautiful thing. And it also reminded me, because the first time I saw it, I was at Harvard. I was in Claverley Hall, and it was going to premiere around the world at one time. And so billions of people heard and saw it. And I had rushed out of the shower, was standing in a towel or naked by myself, watching it on the Channel 5 News and weeping in WCVB Boston. It's
funny because I was at NYU. I was in my dorm room when it came. It was the same thing. I totally remember.
That kind of moment of communal compassion and charity.
Yeah.
Seemed to sort of hit the iceberg with Hands Across America, right? When everyone was going to hold hands across the country.
And then nobody held hands. Nobody wanted to touch anyone.
And then downtown in the East Village, where we were, there was everybody got together and did Downtown, did a recording of
Diane Brill, Keith Haring,
yes,
Andy.
But James, to my eternal shame, the Pop-Tarts were not invited.
No.
Yes. So there you go. We were the Madonna of We Are the World.
Right? Yes. I've always said you were the Madonna of downtown.
I came to LA, that's summer of '84, and I was here right before this thing was taped, and it captures in B-roll and some recreations, but the 80s in LA, the cars, the hair, Sunset Boulevard, Ken Cragen's office. That's why Partially White stirred me so much. I felt like someone had opened up
back. Your time was
my
traveling.
memory. Yeah, my memory bank.
Yeah.
And how still imperfect celebrities were, how greasy, and their hair wasn't quite right. It was a realer time. I know it's an old, what old men say, but it's true. But The Greatest Night in Pop, I highly recommend it.
Number 6.
Martha, the new documentary on Netflix by R.J. Cutler, who has done documentaries about Billie Eilish. He's done them about David Furnish and Elton John. He's a very well-known.
He did the famous Vogue video way back when.
Right.
Video.
Yeah. Okay. It is fascinating to watch. It is absolutely like you are on the edge of your seat the entire time. She's 83 years old. Okay. Wow. She's arguably never been more famous. And she is richer than the Queen of England. You know, I mean, like, she is at the tippy top of her game, and she has zero fucks to give. Nice. She is scorched earth. With one look, she can eviscerate a subject matter. She talks shit about her ex-husbands. She talks shit about her ex-boyfriends. She talks shit about her ex-associates. If anyone did not stand by her after she was in prison, she will talk shit about them. Kmart, she just goes off. How dare they? But she doesn't raise her voice like that. She talks in that very soft voice, that waspy
Which
voice.
Is even scarier.
Scary. And she is scary. It's just fascinating to watch because like I said, she had an assistant who slept with her husband at Turkey Hill in the greenhouse, and she caught them. And most people, when that happens, maybe they wouldn't mention the assistant's name. She mentions the assistant's name. And it's funny because her best friend, her manager, is her best friend, Susan Magrino, who I used to know back in the 80s and 90s when she was at Crown Publishing, I think. She was a publisher. Now she takes over. Now but she's a little afraid of her. Everyone around her is a little afraid of her. And in fact, R.J. Cutler, she's gone on in every interview they do. She is not happy with the documentary. She told RJ that she wanted different music, and she thought he spent too long on her prison sentence. And not enough.
And she didn't like the end because they have some footage of her. She just had foot surgery or something. It's supposed to like she's hobbling, and she was very upset with the last images. She's limping off into her sunset.
No, she wants she portrays strength. She always wants to portray strength.
Yeah.
There was a moment where it was faltering, and her empire was we didn't really know if she was going to make it or not. This was after she was in prison, and they decided to put her on the roast of Justin Bieber. I don't know if you remember that. And everyone was like, why is Martha Stewart on this roast of Justin Bieber? She came out and they showed her whole segment, and she is just, like I said, vicious. Like Henny Youngman could never, Milton Berle could never. And she just took down Snoop Dogg, every single person there, Kevin Hart, all of them. And then she got to Justin Bieber, and she was like, look, I'm the only bitch here who's been to prison. And let me tell you, when you go to prison, because you're going to prison, young man, she's like, this is how you make a shank. You take, you whittle down some oak, and then you wrap it and she did like her Martha Stewart bit, but about making shanks. And it was so funny that single-handedly put her back on top again. And that's when she started her association with Snoop Dogg. Yep. And when she sort of became hip again with the young kids. It's just her whole story, just from the waspy, mousy little, wife in Connecticut to just, this
I haven't seen the documentary yet, but my memories, because I'm that old, it's like in the 80s, I worked at HBO, and my friend Leslie Peters, one year for Christmas, I was like, what do I get my mom? What do I get my sister? She goes, well, there are these cookbooks by this woman named Martha Stewart. I'm like, who? She goes, Martha Stewart. There's a Martha Stewart wedding. There's Martha Stewart, like, holiday. I was like, are people really going to want these? She's like, yeah, they're really popular. They're really interesting. And that she has built and built and built her empire. It really is. I'm glad they made this documentary because she is a force of nature and, one of the most successful women.
It's interesting because in the late 70s and 80s, she was one of the only women on Wall Street. She was a Wall Street broker. And that's how she made her
money. We know
how
that turned out, though. We know how that turned out.
Well, they talk about how that's how she made her millions. And then she sort of pivoted to being a caterer. And so she would, all these rich, Wall Street people, she would cater all their parties, and they all wanted to know how she did it. And that's when she wrote her first book. And I remember that first book, Martha Stewart Entertaining. I got that from my stepmother. My stepmother would pore over those, like, how do I be that, So I think a lot of women, it was so aspirational in the 80s, especially when everyone wanted to aspire to that type of lifestyle.
Changed everything. All right, that's Martha, the documentary, currently playing on Netflix. Let's move on to number 5.
Number 5.
I Am Celine Dion.
Go on.
I hadn't seen it when you talked about it. I loved this because I loved this from the moment it started. And I haven't always been a lifelong Celine fan, but thanks to Billy, I've actually seen Celine perform a few times, and to see her is to love her because she is a kooky, dynamic, just fills the room with her lovely nuttiness and that incredible, incredible voice. And this documentary, as you so beautifully described, describes how I don't know if stiff person syndrome is a life-threatening disease, but it's certainly, from her career point of view, her talent, it's a kind of potentially most likely terminal blow. And this documentary is so human, and I don't want to re-review it because you did it so well, but I do want to make a prediction. It's going to win the Oscar. And I know we're a year out from the Oscars, from the Academy Awards, but this will win the documentary Oscar. I am convinced of it. And
why is that?
I've been right before. I was right about Navalny, and I was right about March of the Penguins, and I wasn't afraid to call them like months in advance because I think it's going to be very hard for anything.
I've already decided to vote for that now because of you on my Oscar ballot at your party this year. But we just, Celine has a seizure on camera, which is so compelling. I almost didn't watch it because of that, because I didn't want to peer into her most private, I believe it happened legitimately on camera and all that kind of stuff. Yes. And how would you not include it? And it's part of what she's paying. We shouldn't look away from the heart of sadness and danger.
I found it watchable because I believe the intention was pure all along. And so I didn't feel uncomfortable watching it. And I had already cried a lot in the way it was constructed. It's so thoughtfully, sensitively put together. And
you have a respect for her too, because again, everyone, when you talk about Shannon Doherty or any of these people, they've had a whole life. The bad girl Shannon Doherty that was on the cover of all those magazines, that's not who she became. And Celine Dion was sort of like, oh, she has that older, husband, and she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's great. She's such a sophisticated, thoughtful, life-lived woman now. It's like, give people a break. It's sort of like AI Fenton. They just, at some point, it all comes together.
James, have you seen it?
I haven't. I'll watch it tonight.
Yeah. And congratulations to the director, Irene Taylor, because it's a spectacular film.
And those are our favorite documentaries of 2024. Tom's pick, The Greatest Night in Pop, and James's pick, Martha, are both streaming on Netflix, and Fenton's pick, I Am Celine Dion, is streaming on Prime Video. And if you're just tuning in, you can hear the show from the beginning, as well as the 425 other episodes of the Wow Report on our YouTube channel, Wow Presents, on the Wow Report podcast, wherever you podcast, or in the SiriusXM app. Now, before we go to break, I just want to remind you, in addition to the daily advent calendar deals you get through the end of the year by signing up to our mailing list at worldofwonder.com, And in addition to the 20% off savings across Wow Presents Plus, RuPaul's DragCon, RuPaul's Drag Race Live in Vegas, and the Wow Store through next Monday, if you spend $75 or more in the Wow Store, you'll also get this sickening Shantae You Slay high-heeled stocking for free. We'll be right back after the break with our favorite studio movies of 2024.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to our 2024 movie extravaganza here on the Wow Report for Radio Andy. I'm Blake Jacobs holding down the fort here at Wow HQ. In this segment, we're going to be chit-chatting about our favorite studio films of 2024, starting with Tom's pick at number 4.
Number 4.
I've seen a movie I don't want to over-explain that I insist that everyone see. Everyone within the sound of my voice, go see the movie Anora.
Well, now this is interesting because my sister went to go see it the other day and tried to drag me, and I wouldn't go see it. I didn't want to. Now tell me why I was wrong.
My friend Greg is the same way. He goes, I hear from everyone. It's like voting for Kamala. People know they should do it, but they don't. I don't know what's going on with you, James.
Oh.
Anora is, first of all, it is directed by, it's written, directed, edited by Sean Baker. Sean did his first film that I was aware of was something we all loved, Tangerine.
Oh,
was
yeah,
shot
of course.
on
Okay,
iPhones, and it was shot like within our neighborhood.
yes.
And about this wonderful community and interesting and edgy community of trans people. And his films are scripted. They always feel to me like they are, or at least with Tangerine and Anora, they feel like they're real. You know, they're just so well done. He also did
The Florida Project?
Yes, thank you very much. Which I knew was like, again, I didn't see that because it was supposed to be a movie you're supposed to see. It's supposed to be great, but I didn't go see it. Anora, I just felt the need, I need to get away from food. So I go to long movies. I went on Saturday night. It's super long and I didn't care because it's like 3 chapters. One's kind of a modern Pretty Woman. The middle section is kind of After Hours. Was that Martin Scorsese film?
Yeah,
Where it's
yeah.
like, and the last is just its own unique craziness. And the story plot line, spoiler, is a girl from New York who lives in one of the burgs. She is a stripper at a gentleman's club in the Midtown Manhattan. And, there's real strippers that are used. There's dancers. They're dancers. I'm sorry. There's no shame because this film has no shame and no, and a Russian oligarch's 21-year-old son falls in love with her. Does the Pretty Woman thing, says, I want to buy you for a month. And everything goes right. And then they get married in Vegas. And then her oligarch family sends their goons and then eventually themselves to break up the marriage. It's a comedy, a drama. The words are just going to repel you, but it's a commentary on social class. And I did not know any of the actors going in. And I went home and I looked it up. And the lead, because I thought they were all real. I knew they weren't, but I thought they were all real. It's shot so coolly. People think that the middle part's a little long. I was there for every bit. It takes place like on Coney Island in the winter. That's where it's just, I don't have the words. And I don't want to spoil anything.
Well, who are the actors?
It's Mikey Madison. She was in the FX comedy series, The Daughter on Better Things, which I never saw. She was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She played Manson family follower Susan Atkins. And she is brilliant. She does not use a body double. She is dancing. You get such a feeling of what this life is like. And at one point, I'm thinking like, oh my God, are dancers like that happy? Do they have agency? Are they? And it's like, again, enough happens to her that it's all of it, right? They have agency. They don't have agency. Life is great. Life is not. It is a thrilling movie. I've done nothing to convince you. Help me, people. What do you
know? One second though, because there's a woman in the movie named Ivy Woke who plays Crystal. Do you know who I'm talking about? Does that ring a bell?
I believe because there's this great Vulture article that Sean Baker went to a lot of strip dance clubs to research and talk to a lot of women and then cast some of them in the film. And one of them works at a club in North Hollywood that is SAG. SAG AFTRA. It's a great article. I'm a dancer and I'm an actress. And the Vulture writer, I don't know the name, he happened to sit next to 2 of them on the way to Cannes because this was a big deal at Cannes. and then he met another one there, and it's just like hearing these women's stories, which is something you get to read afterwards, and how all the extras not the extras, but the dancers in the club are real. And they also talk about how, because they're doing lap dances, all that kind of stuff, and all of the men are actors, but it was the same thing that happens at the club, because people sit in your lap and they make all this small talk, and like, hey, what do you do and where are you from? And it's like, it's just it's enrapturing. I've come up with the reason that James will watch.
Okay.
The co-star of this, the actor, the Russian actor, Mark something, can't pronounce his name, who plays Ivan, the 21-year-old son of the Russian oligarch who they falls in love with each other.
Right.
He looks like a Troye Sivan, a Timothy Chalamet, and there is, without it being purient, they have so much sex and it's banging, and he goes really fast and she teaches him how to slow down. It's just, there's so much humanity and love. And
that's so cute. I love when boys go too fast and you have to teach them to slow down. That's like one of my favorite things about sex.
I knew I can draw you in. Trust me, this is going to be on every awards list. This is something you have to do. I expect you both. I demand that you both do this before I see you next.
Number 3.
I am furious about Furiosa. I went to go see it at the theater the other day on opening night, and it's spectacular. It's just absolutely, it's fantastic.
But it's a bit of a box office.
Well, that's what I'm furious about, because it's a prequel to Fury Road, and Fury Road is it is the best action movie of all time. I truly believe that in my heart of hearts. Right. I think it is one of the best movies of the 21st century. And this is a prequel to it that lives up to the hype. It is nonstop, heart racing, on your feet, applauding and jumping up and down. It's that good. Chris Hemsworth is hysterical. He is so good. Anya Taylor-Joy is a worthy successor to Charlize Theron. But what happened, after 24 hours, they released the box office numbers, and the box office numbers were not up to what the studios actually
tracking. Yeah.
It was a disappointment. And what happens then, like what happened with The Fall Guy, is it becomes this sort of self-perpetuating myth.
They abandon the budget, the promo budget, right?
Yes. And then all of a sudden, everyone starts saying, well, it wasn't that good. And then the word of mouth goes south. And then the numbers keep plummeting and plummeting and plummeting as everyone is talking shit about it. And it just, like I said, it's this self-perpetuating thing where if they hadn't released the numbers and if they hadn't said it's a bomb, then it wouldn't have been a bomb. And if it would have stayed in the theaters a little bit longer, if it would have had a chance to build an audience by word of mouth.
Susan Seidelman talks about this very thing in her biography, actually, with Making Mr. Right, meeting Mr. Right. I mean, it's been something that's been going on for many years, right?
Yeah, definitely. In the olden days, and when I was growing up, you had a summer movie would come out in June, and in August it would still be playing, and it would do blockbuster numbers. But because the day after it's declared a bomb, there is out of the theaters, and it doesn't have a chance to build an audience. And I'm just saying that I really enjoyed it. And if you get a chance to go see it in the theater, go do it, because it is a lot of fun. Like I said, it's one action sequence that keeps building and building and building. And about 3/4 of the way through, there is a scene, and if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, where all of a sudden they're in parachutes and they're shooting flaming arrows as they're racing through the desert. And people just kept screaming in the audience as it kept building and building and building. And you can't believe where it's building to. It's just so bonkers and bananas.
The Furiosa in theaters now.
Number 2.
The Apprentice, the movie. Have you seen The Apprentice?
I have.
Tom did.
It is it's a brilliant movie. Do you not? It's fantastic.
I 100% agree with you. I think you were away, but I want to hear what you say. But I thought, just as a movie on its own, forgetting about it, it's beautifully made.
I think the fact that it is 100% true and brilliantly insightful in both a micro and a macro sense has a lot to recommend it. But it's also a really well-made film and visually very clever. Incredible performances. I mean, I know everybody's talking about Jeremy Strong, who's very good as the sort of heavy-lidded Roy Cohen, but the guy who plays Trump is spectacular. I actually almost think he has the edge over.
Well, it's who's isn't it? Sebastian Stan,
Stan.
who we saw on Broadway. Remember Fenton? We saw him in Moulin Rouge.
Oh, my God! I know. And wow. Well, then even more incredible. I mean,
he's Bucky in the Avengers.
I mean, so how someone so hot can also make themselves into a complete monster is also extraordinary. I mean, it is a brilliant, brilliant film. But Tom, I also feel, to your point, that what it does is kind of telescopes so much into 90 minutes. You know, you have the context of Watergate and the fact that Nixon was pardoned, which kind of, in a way, opened the doors for a return to this kind of shenanigans and corruption and insanity that we see with Trump. It does also dimensionalize and sort of kind of explains to you why someone could become such a monster. And it's also funny. There's a great moment when, I mean, it's grotesque, when Trump is wheeling Roy Cohn around Mar-a-Lago in the wheelchair and he just bounces him down the steps. It was, you know, sort of these little moments that were just so. Is
there an Ivana character in it?
Absolutely.
It's one of the pivotal scenes. I mean, for me also, because we all talk about Trump and we say this, but it's reminding young people who might see this movie, or all of us, who Roy Cohn is and how evil he was.
Yes.
And those three things that he lived by. This is documented. The three rules he lived by that Trump lives by. I said this the last time, but it's like it's the first one is attack, what Trump does every single day, every other breath. You know, the idea that there is no truth, just say it and say that it's true. And the third is don't admit defeat even when you lose.
And I think that third one is the most crucial, isn't it? But
it's what he does is those three things, and he's poking at you, so you can't ever get your balance with him to like get in a question to talk him down, because he's attacking you, he's making up the truth, and then he's not admitting defeat. It's a really good movie. I know it sounds crazy. I'm not just saying because of it's the texture. New York, shithole New York is quite amazing, and then glossy New York is quite amazing in the 80s.
The way they capture the feel of film in the 70s in that sort of bankrupt period of New York, and then it sort of evolves into noisy, fuzzy video in the 80s. They capture it all just
that's fascinating,
absolutely flawlessly.
Is it available yet on streaming, or did you go see it in a theater?
It's available for video on demand as of today.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys, we've only got one more break until we reveal the #1 movie that made us go wow this year. And it's a doozy. We'll be right back after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to our 2024 movie extravaganza here on the Wow Report for Radio Andy. I'm Blake Jacobs, holding down the fort here at Wow headquarters, and we finally reached our #1 movie of 2024 that made us go wow, and it is The Substance.
#1.
I saw the movie that everyone's talking about. James and I forced James not to talk about it with me yesterday. We ran into each other. Fenton, have you seen The Substance?
I have not seen The Substance.
Fenton, of all of us,
I know of all of us here. Fenton
Why me? Why?
Because
you love the Videodrome.
I know. It was described as Cronenberg meets Barbie, is what it has been described as. Tom, go, and then I have a number of things to say.
Me, it's help me find the French director's name. It's a woman. It's written, produced, and directed by a French woman who, it's such a singular point of view. They chip away from the very beginning. To me, it's a little Showgirls as well.
Oh, I said it. Interesting. Okay.
And they go to great extremes very early on to let you know this is a surreal reality. It's like a graphic novel. It's like a comic book. It's like the way every shot is a piece of art. Every angle,
every single shot is a cinematic joy to behold. It is interesting that it is in its own dimension, in its own parallel universe, because the cars are all 1970s. If you notice, the idea that she's a jazzercise instructor is very 80s. The colors and costumes and outfits are all 80s, but there's a 90s sort of feel about it.
Her apartment's very 90s. Yes. So I don't want to give too much away, but the premise is that, and the great, they cast Demi Moore, who is the best most well-preserved, most beautiful 61-year-old God ever put on earth. And yet she plays a woman who is fired and deathly afraid of growing old. She's getting a little too old and saggy. And you see so much nudity in this movie. Sometimes in the male gaze when they're making a point about it. And oftentimes when Demi's alone in her bathroom, you just see her. It's just really spectacular. And she gets like a tip from a stranger that she'd be a good candidate for The Substance. And like, I don't know, through weird phone calls. There's by the way, there's landlines and cell phones. So I don't know what year it is either.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, the cell phone thing is very strange. Yes.
But she gets this voice and it says, the substance will make you a better version, a better, younger version of you. You are the Matrix. It all comes from you. Although there'll be two, there'll be one. Now, here's the other thing. The whole movie starts with an egg yolk.
Brilliant.
And then they take a thing. You think they're going to suck it out of the egg. They put the substance, which is lime green, which is brat green, into the egg yolk. And then the yolk goes blah, 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 and becomes two. And that is the message.
That's all the explanation you're going to get of the science for the movie is the egg yolk,
the science,
but it's still the same egg. So it's these two people made out of one, but they're still the same one person. Margaret Qualley,
she gets
Demi
the
Moore.
kit. She gets the kit like a from the thing, and she injects this stuff. Nothing happens. She's bummed, and then she throws herself. What?
Here's the thing about the injection is that if you are afraid of needles, do not see this movie.
100%. That was gonna be my closer. It's like if you have a needle eviction, do not. My brother can't stand needles. He would have passed out several times.
My sister passed out about 3 times, 3 or 4 times.
But anyway, she shoots herself up. There's lots of needles, and nothing happens. She's bored, and all of a sudden, she slams to this white bathroom with everything's very
fabulous bathroom.
Yes, and all of a sudden we go to her eyes and we see the pupils of her eyes go into like 2, and then out of her back. You've seen the poster where the naked lady is on the floor and you see her stitched back. Out of her back, which makes no sense scientifically. Out of her back comes Margaret Qualley. Andy McDowell's daughter.
Who
is very talented in her own right. Stunning, perfect, and her nipples and her hair. And you've just seen Demi Moore naked. And you see Demi Moore
at her butt.
Yes, then you see her butt, and you're like, oh my God, youth. And the idea is that, and I'll stop here, is that you get to be the young person for 7 days, and then you have to switch over through needles and cords and blood transfusion to bring back the old one.
So you get 7 days on, 7 days off. 7 days on,
so
7 days off.
You're passed out in a room, and things go very wrong when one of the parties wants to stay online a little longer, and there seems to be not pretty for the other.
But you need to know that the last 30 minutes are bonkers, and then the last 10 minutes are unlike anything that has ever been committed to film before in the history of film. And the audience is screaming and jumping up and shouting and
laughing.
And it will never make me think of, like, you know how Alex puts the sparkles on RuPaul's star on the Walk of Fame? I'll never think of that the same way
it starts off and there's a star of Demi Moore. But anyway, I've heard it described. I describe it as the Black Swan meets Death Becomes Her, because it's all about women, fighting aging, everything. Meets Cronenberg Scanners, meets Existenz, remember, with Jude Law, meets Toxic Avenger, meets Gattaca, meets Carrie. It's everything all at once.
The amount of blood is what gives you the
amount of blood at the end.
Meets Baz Luhrmann, meets Requiem for a Dream.
But the Barbie done by Cronenberg is what you need to know. And Demi Moore, this is, you know how Betty Davis had like a 40-year career, and then she did Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and that's what she's known for, essentially, to people today. This is Demi Moore's Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. The clips when she dies, it's going to be on her tombstone. This is Demi Moore's greatest role and craziest role. Do you think, Tom, Blake, that Demi will get nominated for an Oscar? Do you think that it's going to get nominated for makeup, for cinematography? What do you think?
All of the above, I say yes.
You do think that Demi can get nominated for this?
I hope so. So many pretentious things get nominated that this is not pretentious. It's ostentatious, and it's wonderful. The director's name, and I'm probably mispronouncing it, is Coralie Fargeat. Thank you.
Okay.
And she's kind of brilliant. I heard a rumor, I don't know if it's true, that Universal was originally the backer of this movie, and they said you have to cut 30 minutes out of this movie. And she refused, so they distanced themselves, and it was released through another entity. But I feel like it really does end. Like it ends in the bathroom when it goes too far, and then the next 30 minutes are just like, oh my god, oh my
Yes.
god, oh
Yeah.
my god.
That's the toxic Avenger moment. But it's interesting. I've seen things that say, how Black Swan is essentially sort of the same story, but they're pretending to be high art with ballet. And this is not pretending to be high art. This is jazzercise. She's not a star because of her talent. She's a star because she
won an Oscar and she does a jazzercise class on television.
Yes.
So
it's sort of like it bookends Black Swan.
But when I had to release my own suspension of disbelief, and it was when I said, "Oh, this is a graphic novel on film."
It is interesting because it is so not. When you said that you went to it, I kept thinking this isn't a Tom Campbell movie. But I'm so glad that you were able to appreciate and love it, because it's Fenton. You need to go see it, and we can talk about it again. We can.
I do need to see it. You're right. Do you remember? And funny enough, hearing you talk about it reminds me of a movie from '89, early '90s called Society, where it was a sort of Hollywood elite, and they were having sort of body melding orgies, and they would suck the nutrients out of people. It was
I saw this with a babysitter one time when I was very young. Yeah.
That explains a lot.
Sort of similarly in that sort of B movie sounds all judgy, but
isn't there a man with the butt face in that?
Yes.
Yes.
They have these things called shunts, which are just like orgies and it turns out, of course, that they're not quite from this planet. But they sort of have these massive orgies, and it sort of renew their youth by sucking all the life out of humans. So
that's interesting, because another thing to describe this movie is it's very Liquid Sky. The color palette, the music, all that stuff is very Liquid Sky.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wow Report this week. You can listen to this episode and any of our other episodes on our YouTube channel, Wow Presents. And we hope to see you next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go wow.